John Kennedy had always been a man whose words carried weight. Whether he was delivering a fiery speech on the Senate floor, cracking a wry joke that made headlines, or simply offering one of his famous country boy metaphors, people listened. But on that particular autumn afternoon, in a packed auditorium in Washington, he said something that made the air stand still. The audience had gathered for a national town hall broadcast. Politicians, students, journalists, and activists all filled the room, eager to hear Kennedy's thoughts on the state of America. Charlie Kirk, the young conservative firebrand known for his sharp tongue and uncompromising stances, had also been invited. Most assumed sparks would fly between the two. What no one expected was how Kennedy would choose to speak about him. The moderator, a well-groomed journalist with a folder full of pointed questions, cleared her throat. Senator Kennedy, many young conservatives today view Charlie Kirk as a leading voice of their generation. What is your opinion of him and the movement he represents? A murmur ran through the audience. The question was deliberately sharp, designed to test Kennedy's wit and draw out a memorable quote. Kennedy leaned back in his chair, hands folded across his lap, eyes squinting under the stage lights. For a moment, he seemed to be calculating whether to answer seriously or lace his response with humor. Then, in his familiar Louisiana drawl, he began. Charlie Kirk, Kennedy said slowly, reminds me of a rooster I once knew back home. That rooster would crow every morning loud enough to wake up half the parish. He strutted, flapped his wings, made sure everybody knew he was around. But here's the thing, that rooster didn't make the sun rise. He just acted like he did. The room erupted in laughter, some gasps, some applause. Kennedy paused, letting the reaction wash over him. But then he leaned forward, his voice lowering into something more serious. Now, don't mistake me. I say that with respect. That rooster had purpose. He got folks moving. And Charlie Kirk, well, I may not agree with him half the time, but I'll tell you what, he gets people talking. He's young, he's fiery, and in this age when too many young people don't care about politics at all, I'd rather see someone stirring the pot than leaving it to burn. The audience grew quiet again. Reporters scribbled furiously. No one had expected Kennedy to say something so layered, half critique, half praise. Kennedy wasn't done. The truth is, Charlie has courage. He stands in front of crowds that don't always like him, and he doesn't flinch. That takes guts. I've seen seasoned politicians fold like a cheap lawn chair under half the pressure he faces. But courage without wisdom, Kennedy added, is like a car without brakes. You'll get somewhere fast, but you may not survive the ride. This time, the applause was scattered but respectful. Some in the audience shifted uncomfortably, others leaned forward, hungry for more. Kennedy had just given Kirk a strange mixture of validation and warning. Across the stage, Charlie Kirk sat with his hands clasped tightly. For once, his usual grin had disappeared. He seemed unsure whether to take Kennedy's words as an insult or a compliment. When the moderator turned to him and asked if he wanted to respond, Kirk leaned into the microphone. Well, Senator, Kirk said, choosing his words carefully, I appreciate that rooster comparison. I'd like to think I do a bit more than crow in the morning. But I'll admit, I don't mind being loud if it gets people to wake up. The audience chuckled, sensing a rare moment of humility from Kirk. Kennedy gave a small nod, acknowledging the attempt at humor. What followed over the next hour was one of the most unexpected conversations in modern politics. Instead of devolving into a shouting match, the two men engaged in a strange, almost respectful duel of ideas. Kennedy would throw out one of his homespun analogies, and Kirk would counter with statistics or rapid-fire talking points. Kennedy would shake his head, offer a sly grin, and pivot back with another metaphor that drew laughter and applause. But beneath the banter, something deeper was happening. At one point, Kennedy turned to Kirk and said, Charlie, you've got energy. Lord knows we need more of that in politics. But energy without empathy is just noise. Do you ever stop and think about the folks who aren't in your audience? The people who don't clap when you talk. Kirk hesitated. For a man usually quick on his feet, the pause was noticeable. Senator, I believe in speaking the truth as I see it. Some people won't like that, sure. But I can't water it down just to make everyone feel good. Kennedy tapped his pen on the table. I hear you. But remember, sugar makes the medicine go down a whole lot easier than vinegar. You catch more flies with honey. Sometimes you need to make people feel before you make them think. The room erupted in applause again, not because Kennedy had won the exchange, but because he had said something that resonated beyond politics. By the end of the event, the crowd was buzzing. The moderator closed the session, but the conversation spilled over into the hallways, into social media feeds, into newsrooms across the country. Clips of Kennedy's rooster analogy went viral within hours. Memes flooded Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Headlines screamed, "Kennedy surprises with balanced take on Charlie Kirk." But the real shock came later that evening, when Kennedy appeared on a late-night news panel. Asked to expand on his comments, he didn't back down or soften his words. "Look," Kennedy said, adjusting his glasses, "Charlie Kirk and I don't agree on a lot. That's fine. That's America. But here's what surprised me. I think he's genuine. And in politics today, that's rarer than hen's teeth. I'd rather deal with a genuine opponent than a fake friend." Viewers across the nation sat up. For years, politics had been defined by venom, by insults, by division. But here was a senior senator extending something that sounded dangerously close to respect. Charlie Kirk, watching the interview from his hotel room, couldn't help but shake his head. He wasn't used to being given that kind of acknowledgement by someone like Kennedy. The senator had managed to cut him down and build him up in the same breath. The following days brought a whirlwind of reactions. Some conservatives blasted Kennedy for elevating Kirk, accusing him of giving legitimacy to a controversial figure. Some liberals praised Kennedy's ability to take the high road while still delivering sharp critiques. And young people, many of whom felt alienated by the political process, found themselves oddly drawn to the exchange. On college campuses, students debated Kennedy's words. Was Kirk really just a rooster, loud but powerless? Or was Kennedy hinting that Kirk's noise had a purpose, even if misdirected? Professors used the moment as a teaching tool in political science classes, dissecting the art of rhetoric, the balance of critique and respect. In the weeks that followed, Kennedy and Kirk crossed paths again at another event. This time, instead of avoiding each other, they shook hands firmly, with cameras flashing. Reporters peppered them with questions. "Senator Kennedy, do you think Charlie Kirk has a future in politics?" Kennedy smiled his sly smile. "Well, the boy sure isn't shy, and he's got the fire in his belly. Now whether that fire warms people or burns the house down, that's up to him." Charlie Kirk laughed, the tension breaking. "I'll take that as a compliment, Senator." That night, the clip played on every major news network. Commentators debated whether America had just witnessed the beginning of an unlikely political friendship, or simply a passing moment of civility in a divided age. But for the people who were there in that auditorium, the memory stuck. John Kennedy hadn't just delivered another folksy metaphor. He had modeled something rare, the ability to criticize without demeaning, to acknowledge value without compromising principle. And in doing so, he reminded a weary nation that politics didn't always have to be about destroying the other side. Sometimes, it could be about seeing, even in an opponent, a spark worth respecting. For Charlie Kirk, the moment marked a turning point. Though he continued to speak loudly, to provoke, and to challenge, he carried Kennedy's words with him. Courage without wisdom is like a car without brakes. In quieter moments, he wondered if he was headed down the right road, or if he was barreling toward a cliff. As for John Kennedy, he went back to his Senate duties, shrugging off the media frenzy as just another day. But privately, he admitted to a close aide that Kirk had surprised him. "The boy's got more depth than folks give him credit for," Kennedy said. "He just needs to learn when to crow and when to listen." And so, a single unexpected remark about Charlie Kirk had rippled across America, not because it was an insult, but because it carried truth wrapped in humor, respect balanced with critique. In an age when most political words were weapons, John Kennedy had chosen to use his words as both a mirror and a lantern, reflecting flaws but also lighting a way forward.